Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I get to learn a little bit more about somebody else's perspective on movies. And I have a special guest. I have filmmaker Samuel Clemens. Thank you so much for coming on to talk some movies with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Shane. I'm, as you mentioned, to mention myself, I'm Samuel Clemens, and I'm a writer and director. And you very kindly reviewed my film, The Drowned, and that's my debut
Mhm.
film. So I'm very pleased to be on your channel talking about it and about films generally.
Absolutely. And we will be chatting about The Drowned first before we jump into some of my standard questions from the show. But I guess if you want to just introduce yourself a little bit about maybe a little bit about your journey as a filmmaker, and then tell us a little bit about the film so we could dive in and chat about it.
Of course. Well, yeah. I mean, I grew up around the film industry because my
Mhm.
my father was a writer
Okay.
for television and film, and he created lots of TV shows and films, a lot in the UK and in the States as well. He worked both sides of the pond, and so I suppose his most famous things were things like The Avengers, the series
Mhm.
with Patrick O'Neill and Diana Rigg, and that crossing the Atlantic, and films like The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, Highlander 2,
Nice.
um, uh, Blind Terror, and soon The Darkness. He did lots of movies, but and lots of TV. He wrote for things like The Persuaders with Tony Curtis and Roger Moore and all those guys.
Mhm.
Anyway, he had a very, very prolific career.
Yeah.
And so I kind of grew up around it. And when I mean around it, I don't mean like I was on sets or meeting all
Mhm.
these people. It was possible that someone in my life was doing something in the arts that they were succeeding at, and so it felt possible that could be something. And there was no way I was not going to go into it because it was such a romantic industry. I mean, our
Mhm.
our our parents' sort of dinner party evenings. You had stuntmen and directors and writers and producers and people over, and so their stories were just so exciting and enthralling. And so, and I wasn't particularly academic. So the first thing I remember going, how do I become a Jedi? Was really what I wanted to know how to do. I was like, oh, I have to do this thing called acting. Okay, so that was my route in, and
Mhm.
I started. I think a lot of people's route in is through acting. But and I certainly wasn't going to tackle writing with my dad being as successful and prolific as he was. I just thought, oh no, I'm not going to touch that.
Mhm.
And I went to drama school in London, at the Drama Centre London. I trained with Tom Hardy and
Nice.
Michael Fassbender, and sort of graduated around sort of 2000, and then had a career as an actor for sort of 20 years, doing lots of theatre, bits on telly, lots of independent films and things, and short films and stuff. And I there were two things. One, I was at the Royal Shakespeare Company as an actor, and I don't know if they still do it now, but they had a great system where because you were the season that you were with them for 16 months,
Mhm.
and some of that time was in Stratford upon Avon, where Shakespeare, is I think is buried there now, and where the theatre is, and because they have access to, and I didn't know this, they had access to cameras and kit. They would allow you to pitch for a short film, and you could then go and make that short film, and you'd screen them at the local cinema. But your films would star people like Judi Dench and Toby Stevens because they were in the shows that you were in,
Nice.
but they're not doing anything. And they're like, "Yeah, I'll do
Mhm.
your film," and that just blew the doors off the possibility of that. I just didn't even consider that you could pick up a camera and go and make something. And also, it was in the time just before DSLRs. It was a time when it was sort of, HDV, I think, was sort of coming in. It was the old, the DV tapes. And we made a film in a day. I didn't direct. I was just in it. The
Mhm.
Matthew Rhys, famous from The Americans, was in it. He was playing Romeo when we were doing Romeo and Juliet, and he directed a movie called Goodfellows, which he wrote and directed, which was a parody of Goodfellas, about
Nice.
the Tragians, which was us doing all the we were doing all the we were doing Macbeth, Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, and King Lear. So we were the Tragians, and it was this gang versus the Spanish Golden Age, who were next door doing a load of Spanish plays from the
Nice.
Golden Age. And instead of selling drugs and whatever, they were selling sort of sonnets and quartos and folios, and it was very silly. But
Yeah.
the point of it was that it 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 gave me an idea that you could. We went out and made a film in a day, and then we screened it at the
Yeah.
cinema, and that made me go, "Oh my gosh, I really hadn't even considered that." And the other part was I was in, in things later on that I felt could be better if we did that, but it's not my
Yeah.
place to say because I'm the actor, and I felt that, well, maybe I'm feeling like I want to direct something or make, and
Mhm.
so quite quickly I started making shorts and learning what not to do more and more and more, and that's how I
Yeah.
feel about filmmaking is you just continually learn what not to do for the next one, as well as learning what to do, but more not to do. And so I transitioned into directing more. I still act occasionally when people ask, and I've done films and things, but it this is really, I suppose, more my bread and butter. And I work in theatre as well. Sometimes I get to direct theatre, and and my bread and butter is also audio drama. So I direct a lot of audio drama with the for a company called Big Finish Productions, and they do all stories about Doctor Who. I don't know if you know Doctor Who, but
Nice.
it's all sort of new adventures with the Doctors that are not on television at the moment. So
Mhm.
from and they do them from the first Doctor and have impressionists do them all the way up
Yeah.
to now. So we had Jodie Whittaker come in recently um, to start doing some for us as well. Um, so yeah, so and I've always wanted to make a feature, and just because you know you talk about it and talk about it and talk about it for ages, and you try and go, well, this is going to happen, and things fall apart and whatever, and The Drowned came out of total necessity of wanting to make something. I
Mhm.
was like, I need to make something, or I'm going to go bananas. I'm going to kill someone or myself. I'm just like, I can't be that guy that keeps talking about it and
Yeah.
doesn't make. So and that's what brings us up to today. I've done lots of shorts and in preparing to do this, and felt like a feature was the next natural step.
Absolutely. And it sounds like obviously you've had quite an interesting journey getting up to this point. And with The Drowned here, what were some of the influences and ideas that kind of came about to bring this horror film together?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, number one, and I must say it's a necessity, is the sense of
Mhm.
we were going to shoot another film, which is the film I'm working on now,
Okay.
and because it's set in Provence in France, we were trying because it was sort of the opening. It was COVID was still very, very
Yeah.
prevalent, and we thought, well, we're never going to leave, or where I am in England in the UK, we're never going to leave the UK. So I started to see how could we do it in the UK, and we got quite close, and then it kind of fell apart, and I had this huge gap of time that I'd taken off to make that film, and so my partner, who just said, why don't you write something else? And I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'll just write something else. I'll just it took me the whole of COVID to adapt that script before
Yeah.
the thriller that we're doing next, and another film. But I went, you know what? Let's just do it, because otherwise, I suppose what is it? Is in what is it? I'm trying to remember what the quote is. It'll come back to me about necessity, the
Yeah.
invention of it'll come back to me. It's terrible. Someone will know and be like, why aren't you saying it? It's very easy. But I I remember one of the actors, Dominic Vullimy, who's in the film, who plays Matt,
Mhm.
socially, because I knew all the actors in this pretty much. I knew
Yeah.
everyone. And I spoke to Dom, and because he'd mentioned previously that his family owned a part of this house that was kind of, and he used to stay there as a kid and hated it. Thought it was terrifying, and like he wouldn't even stay in the house. He'd sleep in the car. And I was like,
Interesting.
"Where is this house?" And then he told me, where it was, and so I was like, "Can I go and recce it?" Then I called the guy that owned
Mhm.
it, and I went and recce'd it the next day, and I had a sort of the kernels of an idea of maybe like a heist that goes
Mhm.
from sort of one genre and tips into something else. So
Yeah.
it's people not knowing what they're stumbling upon. And so I knew that was the kind of kernel of the idea. I didn't even know at the time what the MacGuffin or the thing was that they'd stolen. I was kind of like, there's got to be something. I will work that out
Yeah.
later. But I went to the house, and then I recce'd the house, and then I wrote the film to the house. So I wrote the film to the
Interesting.
location because I knew what we had, what we didn't have, and most importantly, we only had I think 7 days, or 7 days, 8 nights, 7 days at the house to
Okay.
shoot the whole film. So I knew that I had to be very economic, both with my time and money and all those things, to get it done. And that is an extraordinarily difficult task to do. We had to get like 8 pages in a day,
Mhm.
to make the day. The shoot was a little bit longer than that. We did obviously little pickups here and there and whatever, but 95% of the shoot was in those 7 days. So um, I knew that we were going to be, up against it and under the gun, to get it done on time. But the thing is, what was great is that I viewed that like at the beginning of May, and their date was the 1st of August. So I had
Mhm.
a date. So I was like, well, no matter what we get, no matter what money we get, no matter who's available, I'm shooting it. If it's on an iPhone, I'm going to shoot it on an iPhone.
There
I
you go.
just I want to make it, and it was one of those things of if you book them, they will come,
Yeah.
hoping. And as we started moving forward and started raising a little bit of cash and things, and I started writing it, and even when I'd contact the actors and their agents, they'd be like, "Can I see a script?" I'm like, "You can see the first 30 pages because that's where I am currently." So I kind of wrote it to those guys because I knew that it was going to be an intense shoot. It was going to be long hours,
Mhm.
and it's going to be tough. And I thought that going into that journey, I needed to know these people. Well, I need because it was going to be tough. It's going to be tough to do that
Yeah.
in 7 days. And so so that's, I suppose, where the necessity of those things came from. But it gave us a goal to go towards, and we also had access to a virtual production studio, and so a lot of the film was shot using virtual production, which is amazing for us and quite, I suppose, innovative to be able to make things feel bigger than they are.
Mhm.
But also for them to allow an independent film, a very small, very, very small independent film to come in and try things. And so they were the days that actually we got a bit more time. I got more than 2 takes or 3 takes because we literally didn't have
Yeah.
time to try things. So that was another sort of inventive part of it. But we actually had the studio we could shoot from the 1st of July, and we hadn't even quite finished everything. So we did a couple of days shooting. And then we had a month to cut something together to create a little teaser
Mhm.
to help raise a bit more money, and it's
Yeah.
happening and all those things. And then the bulk of the shoot happened on the 1st of August. So yeah, it was that was, you know that was the journey of it was built out of a desire to make something, the will to do it. Um, I suppose I'd got very used to, as an actor and as a filmmaker, having very little money or no money and no
Yeah.
time as an actor, having to do things, like having 4.5 days to put on a play. I was in weekly rep,
Mhm.
which is a
Mhm.
very difficult way of working. So I was used to having very little time, but knowing that you work to the time frame that you're given, and just trusting that no matter what we had, we would make something within that time
Yeah.
frame.
Well, and finding all about all of this in hindsight, having watched the film, it's quite miraculous to see this story come together in such a confined and restricted way. And also the fact that like this all came out of so many other things lining up. And life is so interesting in that way that you had this opportunity. And like you mentioned, you knew the actors beforehand. You had this tight schedule. Do you feel, and it's not a big cast either. It's a pretty confined film as well. Do you feel like, how do you feel like the experience making this film changed because you already had this connection to these other people that you're collaborating with making the film?
I mean, I'm not gonna, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And I've done lots
Yeah.
of things that are under an enormous amount of time pressure, whether that's theatre or audio or other shorts and things. But it was
Hmm.
sheer time pressure. Luckily, the DOP, Fernando, we've made quite a few shorts together. So we had a real um, shorthand between us. And we didn't have time to storyboard. So we shot
Yeah.
listed. That's what we did. We shot listed, and we kind of went there. When we recce'd it, we kind of took pictures of where the camera would be, and we took pinpoints and
Hmm.
things. We tried to plan as much as we could. But I suppose and also the composer Ed White I'd worked with as well
Hmm.
on all our shorts, and he'd done theatre for us as well. And so I had these two people plus my brother, who's the editor. Um, and we had made quite a few pieces of work together, so I knew that those heads of department were going to be able to support me no matter what, through the process, knowing that it was going to be it was going to be difficult, and it really really was. Um, but that kind of, you know, bonded us in a way that, you know, you're making something that now is not a short, and it's very difficult to make money on a short. It's really
Hmm.
a, you know, calling card. I would even say it's very difficult to make money on a feature as well.
Yeah.
But it is a calling card, but it's also, you do have a product that you're trying to put out there and sell. And I've got an enormous responsibility to try and make the money back for our investors. So hopefully,
Yeah.
you know, might invest in the next one. So, but I think it it's really weird. Like I've been to lots of film festivals and things like Cannes and Berlin and all those sort of the markets and things, and I can tell you, once you've made a feature, it's like you're in a different club. You're invited
Mm.
into the club. Oh, you know how painful this was. Welcome, welcome, brother. And you're like, oh wow. And so that felt very different. And obviously, the Ed and Fernando and George had all made features in their respective roles
Yeah.
before. Um, and I'd been in features as an actor, but not not as a director. Um, so I think it brought us, I suppose, closer together. There, you know, it also tested our relationships, obviously, because there was a lot of pressure to get things done under tight timelines, whether that was just shooting it or
Mm.
editing it for a particular, trying to get it edited ready for a festival, or trying to get the score and the music done for, you know, for again for a festival. And you know, and you're learning so many things on the way. I mean, I learned so much on the making of this film. But I think the collaboration was probably, I think probably the most rewarding part of it was sort of
Mm.
allowing, like, this is how I feel about it as an actor, for example. Like, I might have an idea, let's say with a play, of what the character should do and what they should be and all those kind of things, and you're investigating it. But when you get in the
Yeah.
rehearsal, you really deep dive into where that person's come from, what the historical context is, where their prejudices lie or don't lie, what their belief structures are, religions, whatever it might be, and you start filling it with a lot more detail and
Yeah.
color. And so it's very difficult for me to come in and go, this is what it's going to be, without
Mm.
that exploration and that research. And also, you never know what the other actors are going to do, so you have to bounce off them. So I
Yeah.
would say the key word in here is adaptability, is to be able to adapt to the situation. And I feel like, having had lots of experience as an actor doing that, I was prepared for that with this, that you sort of need to let the film tell you what it's going to be a little bit.
Mhm.
And we did, you know, it deviated a little bit from the scripts here and there, and we had more things, and we had lots of lovely happy accidents that happened because I followed a feeling, went, oh yeah, let's try this, we've
Yeah.
got, you know, let's attempt this, and it took us in a different route, whether that was shooting something, or it was sound design, or it was a musical idea or a shot idea or something like that. So it was, I think that's the one thing. I know there was a very long answer to your question, but I think adaptability is probably the one thing I learned, and the thing I felt that was strongest coming out of this experience.
Well, and honestly, my next question was going to wind up being, obviously, this is what not what you had planned to do, but this has given you so much experience making a film and going through this whole entire process. And you have these other projects coming up. And as you pointed out, all these things that you've learned that now you can bring to that next project, especially like adaptability is so important in anything that you do because nothing is ever going to go as planned. I work full time at a college, whether I'm tutoring or teaching, and just like you might have an idea of how this is all going to go in your head until you actually start engaging with a student or other people and being able to make those types of adjustments. But I guess, Samuel, I always like to wrap up a conversation about a film with a filmmaker by asking, so obviously you have your film, The Drowned, and it's coming out. What's the, if you could pick like one thing, what's one reason why people should go check out your film?
Oh, that's so difficult, Shane. What's one reason? Um, well, sorry, my cat's jumped up here. Hopefully, we don't get attacked by my cat. I think you only get your debut once,
Mhm.
and you're at a level of budget where you have more creative control than you're probably going to have in any other
Yeah.
environment. And I feel that people should watch this because the aim of it for me was to make something that might live up to repeated viewing, that you might
Mhm.
find something in it on a second or third viewing that you missed on the first viewing. I purposefully left ambiguity in there. That was part of the decision making, because if I made it linear, completely linear, it might just disappear amongst every other linear movie. And I wanted that to spark some conversation. So that's one thing, to spark conversation,
Mhm.
really. Um, and hopefully some an image or so stays with you from the film afterwards. And because I don't want to spoil too much, but there was one
Yeah.
shot that was the reason for the whole movie. And I was like, if we
Yeah.
cut, this was the whole point of the film, was at the end, I went, you know it 'cause you've seen it, but where we follow Paul's character as he walks towards the sea. That shot,
Mhm.
that was the whole reason for the movie. And if we couldn't do that, then it would have fallen apart, I think. But I think the reason to watch it is to start a conversation and see what you think it is. And what I love about it is when people talk to me about it, they go, "Is it this?" And I'm like, I mean, yes, like that wasn't maybe what was in my mind, but it absolutely fits that. And I think that
Mhm.
um, one thing I must say, just before to finish off on this, is
Yeah.
the original title for the film was The Waterhouse. That
Mhm.
was the original title, and that makes a lot more sense once you've seen the rest of the movie, because it has a sort of dual meaning to it. And
Mhm.
that particular the MacGuffin in it, the artwork that they've stolen, again, being adaptable, being open, sort of serendipity, stepping in. That painting exists in a mural in my mum's mirror in her bathroom, and has been there my entire natural life. And when I was trying to look for what it could be, what it could be, I literally turned, and it was like this painting was speaking to me, going,
Yeah.
"This is it. This is what the painting is." And what's even more interesting is that the story of the characters is the story of that painting. It's a modern retelling of that painting,
Mhm.
and I just happened to stumble on that at the same time. Oh God, we're
It
getting captive.
is.
Come
We
on.
love that
There, there we go, outside
walking
the
by. I have three of
I'm
my own, so they always like to make appearances. But it's so fascinating that you mentioned that, and it is a type of film where like I do legitimately want to go back and watch this again. And with having watched it and all the thoughts that popped in my head, because there were moments where I'm like, I think I know where this is coming from and where this is drawing from. And that's part of such an interesting experience watching a film where your perspective, your experiences then start imprinting on what you're watching on the screen. And this is a fascinating, tight little film that has a lot of interesting things to think about for sure. And it's haunting. It has some very memorable visuals as well. And it's certainly a film that like I would definitely recommend for people to go check out. And I appreciate the time to go to discuss it with you.
no, thank you so much. I mean, I think it, we didn't have the budget to do, you know, lots of action, but I had time and budget to maybe make you think a bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's why
Mhm.
I think to watch the film, like Christopher Nolan's Following, or or any of the the first time filmmakers films that Ridley Scott's The Duelists, or any of these films. That
Yeah.
I know it's like that's a bigger budget, but I always watch a filmmaker's first film because it's seeing what speaks to them, what project came to them that they could make something
Yeah.
out of. They usually do more with the material than is there. Like obviously Tarantino with with Reservoir Dogs and all those things.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I think you're never going to get it again. So I think that's why it's important to watch it. Maybe I don't know. Hopefully, I get to do another.
Absolutely.
That's the other thing, is that you never know if I'm ever going to do another. You
Yeah.
never know as well. So I have to. I obviously believe I'm. Fingers crossed I will. But I have to treat it like this could be the only film I make. Could be. So I'm trying to pour
Well,
everything of me into it as much as I can.
I'll send all the good vibes so that opportunity comes around that you get to, get back around to making those films that you were intending on originally making
Yes,
before.
well, that's the next one. Yeah, yeah, that is
Yeah.
the next one. We're in casting for that now. So hopefully, it's always a precarious time, but it's exciting.
There you go. Now, before we get into me asking a little bit more about you, Sam, can you give the audience an idea of where they could check out The Drowned?
Yes. So in well across it's in well depending on where you're watching this from,
Yeah.
it's released in all pretty much English speaking territories, so UK, Ireland, US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And I believe they're on Apple TV,
Hmm.
Amazon, Sky Store, Rakuten, Virgin Media, and YouTube Movies. I think that's all of them. If I've missed one, my producer's going to go crazy. But I mean, I think from any territory, if you've got Amazon, Apple, or YouTube, I'm sure you'll be okay to do those. And you just type the drowned in, and if you can part with a little bit of cash for the film this time in the a film's life is so important because it's the
Yeah.
time where filmmakers can start to make anything back from the film to start paying investors and and all that kind of stuff back, and distributors and sales agents and all those things. So it's a very important time for a low budget film, is this TVOD period. So
Yep.
please go out and comment, and please write a review. Give it a star rating, and give it a review. Obviously, if you hate it, maybe don't. Maybe if it's above a 2 star, that would be good. But if
There
it's
you
below,
go.
maybe don't. And thank you very much. And I'm sorry if you didn't like it.
There you go. And yes, it's obviously playing on Amazon. And this isn't like going out and renting for like 19.99 or something. It's a few dollars, and it's certainly worth an experience and will certainly get you thinking. And if you're in that type of mood, especially like as we're recording this around the Halloween season, it has those vibes for sure. But I guess if you're ready, let's get to know you a little bit more.
Okay.
So, and now, this is everybody's favorite question. Some people do have an exact answer, and others like, "Why would you ask me this?" But what's your favorite film?
I mean, it is impossible. That is an
Yep.
impossible question when you're a film lover, because you might be able to do it in genre,
Mhm.
maybe. But I think I've been thinking about this since you asked. There's so many, but the film that I just think is, I watch a lot, and I always marvel at it, and I always get stuck with it, and I can quote the whole thing, is probably Aliens.
Nice.
James Cameron's Aliens. I love Alien, and I'm probably going to
Yep.
be sacrilegious, but I think Aliens is better because I think it takes the mythology of what he created
Mm.
and expands on it in a way that feels totally um natural, and so much and grand, and still very characterful, and
Yeah.
quite I don't know, pinpointed. Like as they go bigger, they kind of go crazy with the
Yeah.
in the Prometheuses and all that. But I think that Aliens still today on 4K looks as good as any new movie that's been made. There are literally two shots, I think, that date it. But I think the
Mm.
practical effects are better. And I think James Cameron actually said that if he was going to do it today, he'd do the Queen Alien CGI. And I think that would genuinely be a mistake. I think that the practical element of it means that we see the gravity at work.
Yeah.
Like, I knows that it's real, and that's what it is. And when there is CG, there is just part of your brain that goes, well, it's not real. Even though we're doing
Yeah.
photo real, you just shut off. You just go, no. But when it's practical, and it feels like Jurassic Park, the first Jurassic Park's the same. You just feel so connected. So I think Aliens is probably, I mean, today is my favorite film, just because I've
Yeah.
been thinking about it. But I mean, yeah, that's one I come back to a lot, and I think, and also the extended version. I think the extended
Mm.
version is the version to watch.
It's in a time where we get so many sequels and franchise films. James Cameron's a filmmaker who really understands how to make a sequel. I'm a huge fan of Aliens. I'm a humongous fan of T2 Judgment Day. James
Yeah,
Cameron just really understands the idea of like how to make a film, and it does look incredible still.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's what, 40 years old at this point,
yeah.
Aliens. And yes, that queen is absolutely terrifying, and it looks like there's a giant monster in front of me, and that's something really impressive.
And I still think that the face hugger scene with Newt and Ripley, and locked in there by Bert, is one of the most tense scenes committed to film. And again, it's the inventiveness of sort of having to reverse the footage, having
Yeah.
the and doing it that. And it still is more frightening than some of the newer ones. It just is. It's
Mhm.
just because you're seeing less of it's the Jaws theory. You're seeing less of it, so it puts it
Yes.
in your mind. It creates the tension, and I think that when you see the monsters or the beasts or whatever all the time, I do think it destroys the
The
fear of it
mystique
being
of it.
the mystique. Exactly. So yeah, and all the
Now,
characters are great. They're all great. They're all fun, and you miss them. And
so great.
I miss Bill Paxton.
A little bit of
Daily.
Bill Paxton dripped into anything is so good.
Game over,
And
man. Game over. Yeah, it's great.
that that should be a character you should absolutely hate because he's so annoying, but he's perfect and so much fun in that. Just
Funny. It's just it's
whole cast
delivery
is
is so
good.
good. Yeah, the whole cast is great,
Absolutely.
and I loved Michael Biehn because I was a huge fan of Terminator, and that's
Yep.
who I wanted to be growing up. I was like, Carl Reese from Terminator was like my hero.
Yeah. Now, what's your earliest memory of going to the movies?
It's really difficult because you sent me a couple of questions to have a think about, and
Yeah.
to my shame, there must be earlier. There must be earlier,
Yeah.
but I'm struggling. But the one that I really remember as being a massive moment, and obviously I'm a sequel kid, obviously, which I'm not really,
Mhm.
but was probably going to the cinema to see Back to the Future 2.
Nice.
And that absolutely blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, that's the future. And
Mhm.
I and then there was a part three coming, which we didn't know about. So
Yeah.
it was such a huge impactful experience at the cinema. Just literally believing that we've gone to the future. I was totally suspended the disbelief, and I think that film again does an incredible job of building on what the first one did. And the first one is a perfect film; it's a fantastic film. But I
Yeah.
love they go back to 1955, and you're seeing them, and
Yeah.
but there will definitely be films before that I went to the cinema. But that's an early one that I remember being totally blown away by as a kid, and just being like, I this is what I want to do. This is all I was interested in. Like school,
Yeah.
schmall. I was like, I just want to do this, whatever this is. And when I got to go to Universal Studios when I was a kid, and I got to
Yeah.
stand on the set with the clock tower and everything, I was just like, that was amazing, absolutely amazing.
Something magic.
Yeah,
I cannot even imagine what the feeling was in a theater when it's like Doc sent him something and he has to go back in time, like, wait, what?
yeah,
And going back to the old west and all of that, I can't even imagine what that feeling would have been, not knowing that. And that's the tricky thing
yeah,
today is you always know that something's coming because people are talking about it on the internet nonstop.
yeah.
I can't even imagine that. And it's very special. This is the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future, and they're re-releasing it at least here in the States for I don't know why it's Halloween weekend, but it's coming out Halloween
Mm.
weekend.
And it's
So
definitely aging me, as you can tell from where we're talking about. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like I had absolutely no idea there was a part three. And when that
yeah.
film finished and it said to be continued, the whole audience went, "What?" It was
Yeah.
amazing. And then you see da, 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 da,
Yeah.
da, 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 and we were like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." So yeah,
Absolutely fantastic.
I agree. I
Now,
agree. Yeah, sorry.
okay. Go ahead.
I would say that you just don't know. You're totally right that there is no surprise anymore. You know what's going to happen, and that's or sorry, that there's a sequel coming, or this person's going to cameo in it, or what. It's so difficult to keep those things under wraps. Really, really difficult.
It's so
And it's
frustrating because it's like if you don't see like a big blockbuster movie opening night, people are going to spoil it for you immediately on
yeah,
social media everywhere, and it's not fun. It's not a fun
you just have to
experience.
go. That makes you go to see it, and as soon as you can. So you don't, don't tell me anything. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm still honed in on Marvel, and I can't go not opening night because then immediately the next morning people are just spoiling everything on the internet.
of
So
course.
it's not fun. I have a couple of more favorite type questions. Do you have a particular favorite genre of movies?
I mean, I I like genres, plural,
Yeah.
but I mean, I suppose when I was younger, it was probably more science fiction.
Okay.
I really gravitated to the science fiction of what the future is, but I feel that I feel like we're living in the future now. I feel like things are happening that feel like how is this real? How
Yeah.
created these things? That I think that as an adult, I've definitely leaned more into a kind of thriller world,
Okay.
like that encompasses that the sort of, I suppose, the Coen brother type
Hmm.
canon, or like a Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul type thing. I like stuff that is something that's kind of got maybe a dark undertone, a thrilling undertone, but with very interesting characters. Even though I suppose Tarantino sort of falls into that as well. And as
Yeah.
I always like a good thriller. If it's good, obviously. There's lots that are not good, but I still do love a sci-fi. I mean, when Denis Villeneuve was doing Dune, I was queuing up for that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think when it's done well, uh, you know, because arguably even the Nolan Batmans are kind of thrillers. Yes,
Yeah.
they're super, but he's not a superhero. It's a detective thriller, sort
Mhm.
of, really. That's kind of with an action film. I mean, and I love action as well, but I think thrillers encompass action as well. So maybe I'm trying to sort of, put them all into one. I
Well,
don't know.
and when you watch The Dark Knight and realize that heat was such a big influence on it, it's like it is that kind of crime thriller that it's
Yeah.
going for specifically. And I'm a huge Coen Brothers fan. And at this point, I'll watch literally any show Vince Gilligan comes up with after Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So
Yeah.
you're
Yeah. Well,
waiting.
his next one I'm very excited about. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Can't wait to see that.
absolutely. Now, do you have a particular favorite filmmaker or one that you gravitate towards?
It's very difficult, isn't it? Because I mean, and there's so many that keep coming out. There's so many
Yes.
amazing people, but I think, um, God, there are lots. I mean, I love Sam Peckinpah from back in the
Mhm.
day. Sergio Leone. We wouldn't be here without him, having basically created, I would say, the superhero movie almost pretty much with all those
Yeah.
those. I mean, that comic book style really.
Mhm.
He sort of invented that. I love a Leone film. Um, but I mean, I do think, and I know a lot of people say it, but I think Stanley Kubrick is probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, in the sense that his films again don't date.
No.
Watch them, and like 2001 still is amazing today.
Don't
Like
understand how he made half the stuff in
it's incredible. Like,
1968.
but it's quite a cold feeling. So I don't know if I was on a desert island, I don't know if I'd want just Stanley Kubrick's collection, because I'd feel quite, you know, um,
Get a little depressed.
yeah, I'll just be, existential. Well, maybe I should end it here, after watching his canon of work. So I love Kubrick, and I love Nolan, and Michael Mann, and Tarantino's great. I mean, it's very difficult, but I do think, I know we talk about him being one of the greatest filmmakers ever, but I do think Spielberg is amazing in the
Mhm.
sense that he's one of the only directors where you don't really see the director, and you see the story. The story is king or queen, and everything else is in service to the story. And his use of camera work is so elegant, but you don't see it a lot.
Yeah,
Then you're not aware of it. Like I mean, not that I watch this a lot, but Schindler's List popped on TV recently, and I've not seen that. I've probably seen it twice in my life, and I
yeah,
just got. I went, "Do you know what? It's not. I know I might not be in the mood for it, but let's just do it."
yeah,
And I came away just going, "It's just an incredible film." And I'd only watched, something like, I think, I don't, Indiana Jones, not that long, before, and just going, "How is this the same
yes.
person, that can do these things?" So yeah, a very difficult question. I mean, I would say, yeah, probably Kubrick and Spielberg. I would say probably, but for the warmth and the cold. Do you know what I mean? To balance each other out.
Got to find some balance here. Got
Yeah,
to have
yeah.
some balance in life. Now, thinking about in front of the camera, who are some actors or actresses that stand out to you?
I mean, when I wanted to be an actor, there was lots of actors. Obviously, we all want to emulate. I mean, like, I do think Brando was extraordinary, and he
Mhm.
was extraordinary because he didn't create it at all, but he really popularized behavior, being able to
Yep.
behave on screen as though he lived in this world. It was incredible. Not seen anything like that before, and he's still so magnetic when you watch the films. You just go, there's
Mhm.
the movies. He's just living and behaving in the world. I think an actor that I will. There's lots that I'll get out of bed for. I'm like, right, I want to see what they're going to do. I'm really
Yep.
interested, I'm excited. But I think Anthony Hopkins is one of,
Mhm.
coming from the UK. I think he's one of our greatest. I mean, like, he's so truthful, but what he does is he deals with the problem, like the problem that the character is facing isn't on the surface, it's underneath. And we see
Mhm.
it, and we see him battling against that problem. and struggling with it. And that's why we cry when he cries, or we cry when we can see, he's struggling, is because we recognize that problem in ourselves, that we don't want to show that emotion
Yeah.
because it's not what we do. He's fighting the problem of not showing it. And so it's not a sort of acrobatic display of emotions. It's a restraint. And I think that, when he did The Father, I don't know if you've seen The Father, but I mean,
That gutted
just
me.
yeah,
Just
just give him the
incredible.
Oscars for the next 3 years. You're like, what are you talking like the difficulty of doing it and the quality
Mhm.
of that work. And I remember I saw it on stage, not with him. It was another actor, and the actor was brilliant. But I remember thinking, God, Anthony Hopkins would be like the number one choice for me to this. And then when they do the movie, I was like, oh my God, it's him. And then it's
Yeah.
a heartbreaking film, but he's to do, I don't know, um Hannibal Lecter to that, is quite remarkable. But I think he's amazing. I think Daniel Day-Lewis, you can't not acknowledge is extraordinary. Mark Rylance, I think, is
Yes.
absolutely incredible. I think that they're all sort of chameleons. You kind of can't. It's a magic trick, and you go, I can't see how you've done it. It's so mystifying. But then, I love your sort of Harrison Fords. It's always Harrison
Yeah.
Ford, but no one does Harrison Ford better than Harrison Ford or whoever,
No.
it's the everyman. So there's a place for everyone. But I think that growing up wanting to be like a kind of, I suppose, obviously like a Brando or a De Niro or a Pacino, who are, again, huge. I suppose I feel like I'm saying all the people that everyone would say, but I mean, it's you say those people for a reason because they are incredible. And yeah, Derek Jacobi was one. I thought he
Mhm.
was a wonderful British actor.
I love still seeing him pop up in literally anything. He's
Yeah.
so incredible. And it was so interesting because I took Latin for 5 years
Oh wow.
when I was in school. And we watched I Claudius, the series, and I think that was the I don't think I put two and two together that Derek Jacobi was the same person as who was in Gladiator, because I'm pretty sure that's the first time I've seen him in a movie. But him just anchoring that series, and there's so many great actors
Yeah,
in that
everyone's
mini
in it in
series.
that period. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, incredible. Now, what's a film that you feel like you could literally just watch like every day?
Oh, every day. God, I mean, oh, that's really hard. Sorry, just dealing with the cat. Well, again, I was thinking about this, and uh, I now also watch films with a level of nostalgia of people that are no longer with us. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like lots of my family, it's my brother and my mum are still around, but pretty much most of my extended family and who I
Yeah.
grew up and who are my parental figures, obviously my dad was included, but aunties and uncles and all that, they're all gone, and so film now is like a time machine for me to
Mm.
feel a certain way. And I think that there are lots of them. And I think there are a couple. I mean, the one that immediately came to my mind was The Birdcage with Gene Hackman
Nice.
and Robin Williams and Nathan Lane, because and I think it's a hilarious, and it gets funnier the more I
Yes.
watch it. But that reminds me of my dad and my mum and those
Mm.
experiences. Do you know what I mean? As a kid and laughing a lot. And the other one would probably be Harold and Maude,
Nice.
the Hal Ashby movie, which I just think is one of the funniest films I've ever seen, and
Mm.
it just gets better and better and better. And I remember I got a chance to go to the cinema to see it. They did a screening at the
Nice.
BFI here, the British Film Institute, quite some years ago, and I went to the cinema to see it, and it was packed. And
Mhm.
I'd only been used to watching it on video or DVD with a couple of mates or whatever who laughed at it. But suddenly hearing an entire audience roaring
Yeah.
with laughter at it was an extraordinary experience. And I just think whatever it's on, it makes me laugh, it makes me cry, it makes me sort of positive for the future, and to be kind to one another and to look at each other, you know, not to judge people on their choices all the time. It has a lot in it, for
Yeah.
that you can come back to. And it's kind of similar, I suppose, with the birdcage. It's not it's not dealing with prejudice so much and being able to
Yeah.
challenge your prejudices and all that stuff. But it's just so funny, and just watching, Robin Williams, and I think comedies are great because they take, they always cheer you up, don't they, and kind of remind
Yeah.
you of your time. So probably there are probably better films than that, but I think a comedy, I think, is probably where I'd probably watch every day.
And I think we all could use a good laugh, honestly, every day. So now,
Yes.
what's a film that you connect with closely because it relates to another interest of yours?
That's such a good question because like I grew up in this industry and
Mm,
I'm acting and so like everything is involved. Like
yeah.
it's really hard. Like I don't have that many. I mean, I tell you, what, I used to DJ quite a bit.
Okay.
So I mean, there are a couple of films that kind of would bring that part out of me again.
Mhm.
There's one called Juice. I don't know if
Okay.
you've seen this, which is a great movie. Is it the Hughes brothers? I can't remember who directed it now. It's terrible off the top of my head. I'll have to
Mhm.
have a look. But it's a great sort of hip hop film with Tupac Shakur's in
Yeah.
it. Really young and he's brilliant. And that sort of that underground sort of hip hop breakbeat kind of
Mhm.
vibe was brilliant. And the other one is a very British one called Human Traffic, which
Okay.
which really brings me to sort of what I was listening to in the 90s, sort of like drum and bass and jungle and happy hardcore and the rave scene and all that. And so that those films totally
Mhm.
transport me to that part of my life because I used to DJ, I had decks and all that
Yeah.
stuff. I still got all my vinyl. I need to get some more decks again and do it. I'm just too busy trying to make films at the moment. But those
There you go.
films probably connect me to another passion, I suppose.
It's always very interesting going back and watching a film that really captures the music of a specific time in your life. Because like I was just writing about American Pie, which honestly was such a specific point in time for I feel like Gen Xers and millennials here. And just listening to the soundtrack, I'm like, oh my God, this used to just be on the radio nonstop all the time. And the music of that just making that type of connection. Because I'm a big fan of music too, and I really pay attention to the music of used in movies. And it's really special being able to like watch something and just like zaps you back to a very
Yeah, like
specific point in time in your life.
in the UK, maybe Train Spotting. That was a real moment in sort
Yeah.
of musically, as well.
Yeah.
Like everyone bought the album and all that
Mhm.
stuff. I think the modern one of that is probably oh my God, what's it called? The Irish film. Uh
Kneecap.
Kneecap.
Yeah.
Kneecap. And that has sort of like a similar,
Yeah.
you a vibe to, it's like an Irish version of a Train Spotting kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, who's a movie character that you feel like you connect with on a personal level?
Oh God. Oh, I mean, lots, I suppose. I mean, I mean, obviously, growing up, I mean, it's difficult because I'm of the generation, which is such a boring answer, that is that we grew up with Star Wars, and Star Wars was
Yeah.
everything. And I remember having my dad managing to get some sort of bootleg copies, so I had them on video for a long time. So I'd watch
Nice.
them every day until I, just ruined them.
Yeah.
And obviously was completely like I wanted to be Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Um, but then as growing up, I remember watching, for example, I remember really connecting with this on an empathetic level was and maybe one of my loves of Anthony Hopkins was The Elephant Man, was
Okay.
his character Dr. Treves, who sort of
Mhm.
discovers the Elephant Man and that film just breaks my heart, but I love it. And my granddad on my dad's side, he was quite a lot older. I think he met the Elephant Man, and
Okay.
which was amazing. So I always felt like, oh my God, there's a little connection. There isn't at all,
Mhm.
obviously, but
Yeah.
um, I just but I just felt that someone to have that level of compassion
Mhm.
uh, for someone that in that era was obviously treated as a circus freak is was incredible. That level of kindness, and I think that's why he was cast as Hannibal Lecter. I think Jonathan Demme said, "Well, if he can play a kindly, loving doctor, I'm sure he can do the opposite." Which
Yeah.
clearly he could pretty
Well,
well.
and even just that film, David Lynch just had a way with understanding human beings
Mm.
on such a deep level and making something so because it seems like such not a David Lynch movie compared to like obviously everything else that he has made, but I think there's something very human about that, and it's such a empathetic performance that Anthony Hopkins gives in that film for sure, and such a crazy journey that that movie took to come to about that like Mel Brooks produced this movie.
Mel
It
Brooks, I mean,
took
crazy, but I totally
but
get it. And the other one that I
absolutely.
loved of David Lynch's was The Straight Story. I just thought
Mhm.
that was two of my favorite David Lynch films by probably they're probably my two favorites next to all of the more surreal
Yeah.
experimental stuff, because they just cut to the heart, both of them. I mean,
Mhm.
I thought they were so fantastic, both of those films, and beautiful score
Absolutely.
things. And yeah, anyway, yeah. So probably Dr. Treves, I'm going with Anthony Hopkins.
There you go. Now, just have two last questions for you. What's a film that you love that you feel like would surprise people?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, I suppose it's. I mean, nothing would probably surprise my friends and
Mhm.
family too much because I have quite a lot of. I mean, look, on one end of the spectrum is like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like,
Mhm.
it's a hideous film,
Yeah.
but my God, what a film! And I still don't. I think horror has never been more horrifying than that film. Even today, everything sort of is sort of built. It feels like it's constructed. Whereas that first time you saw Leatherface was just, I mean,
Well, it's so
so
visceral, and I think people fill in gaps in their head thinking that this is like the most brutal, goriest movie they've ever seen, but not realizing that you don't see a whole lot of it.
no, no, you
And
don't.
because you don't need to.
No, no,
Because and I think that's one of the most important things about horror is realizing when to and when not to show things. And that and the first Halloween film don't really show a ton.
no, no, they
It's
don't.
all up here and it's building that tension for sure.
I mean, not that people would be surprised. It's a hard question, but I mean, again, like on that end, I mean, maybe something like Safety Last, Harold Lloyd.
Mhm.
Loving the different spectrums
Yeah.
to Disney's. I loved Inside Out. I think Inside Out is a masterpiece.
Yes.
I just think that in years to come, like I mean, to visualize how to explain feelings
Mhm.
on that suddenly a happy memory now becomes sad because that person is no longer there, or you have a trauma with it, or whatever. I just thought was that is, I think, a modern masterpiece, Inside Out. I really do. I think it just taking the inside of our brain and visualizing it so children and everyone can understand.
Mhm.
I think is so. I mean,
Absolutely.
I've picked three films that are very different, I suppose. I mean, yeah, I like lots of films and lots of genres. When you say a favorite genre, I'll pretty much watch anything really. I mean, like, I don't rush out to see maybe a like a Scooby Doo the movie when they're gonna CG like a cartoon character that I loved.
Yeah.
I'm not going to run out and see that, or I've got no interest in seeing any Disney live actions of those series because they're never as good. I've seen a few of them and they're just never as good as the animation.
Just like the only reason they're doing this is make money. And some
Exactly.
of them have made an obscene amount of money for
Yeah.
sure. But
Well,
my
apparently
last
I learned that the and I don't know if this is true, but someone told me that the most successful piece of art in human history is The Lion King because of not just the film, but obviously the films, but the stage show that went everywhere as well. And
yeah.
obviously, but apparently that is the most successful piece of art out there, which is extraordinary, which is basically Hamlet.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, I'm
Yeah,
like, you could just strip that all back. It's just Hamlet with lions. Uh,
exactly.
so, so is it really just Hamlet is the
Maybe.
most
Yeah.
profitable piece of art ever? So there you go.
Do it. There we go.
Now, my last question for you is, what do you love most about movies?
I think as a kid, when like now we're in a world where lots of people work in this area and sector, and they're all and we're all filmmakers of our own lives. We're all creating content. You're creating content. We're
Yep.
all doing this, right? Um, but when I was young, and for anyone obviously older than that, the idea of a film club or like watching films as being anything other than sort of silly fun, or that there's no value in it, was there wasn't any value from an academic perspective at all that you could this would be a pursuit worth following maybe as an actor, but nothing in there was nothing in this space, and I always gravitate towards stories, and I think that the reason I love films is because story is our first medium of learning. Do you know what I mean? Learning about human history, about whether you're documenting something, whether you're, whether it's, hieroglyphics, whether it's things on the wall, do you know what I mean? From,
Yeah.
thousands, tens of thousands of years ago, or it's, the first poem, by, Homer, with the Iliad, and it's stories that tell us about ourselves and about um, morals. And I remember as a kid learning about things that I wouldn't have learned about. I remember watching the series Roots,
Mhm.
um, and learning about slavery and not knowing anything about it really, apart from it being mentioned in history class,
Yeah.
but not really understanding it from maybe that's how I needed to understand. Maybe that's why I work in this area of feeling, I suppose, is because it made me feel about it, and it made me have suddenly an opinion about it, um, and I think that's why films are important, because we spend so much of our time constricting our feelings in front of other people, for social interactions, because
Yeah.
socially acceptable. And movies allow you moments of catharsis, whether that's laughter, whether that's crying, whether that's empathizing, whether that's hatred or rage or
Yeah.
fear or whatever it might be. But it allows you to sort of experience them and get those feelings out of you that maybe you haven't felt for a long time, or you maybe, I don't know, and also prove that it's possible. Things are possible. That change is possible. That good things are possible. That bad things are possible. I just think it's sort of, we're in the business of building dreams, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I find it crazy that the drowned was an idea in my head.
Mhm.
Now you've seen that idea,
Yeah.
and it wasn't completely in my head. It was
Yeah.
constructed by all of these amazing people that I work with, and I allowed them the space and freedom to come with their thoughts and ideas. And so
Mhm.
it's a collection of creativity that's come together. And I just think that's quite beautiful. That's why I think it's probably not probably, I think it's the most, I think it's the highest art form that we have, because it's all of them together. It's
Yeah.
costume, it's makeup, it's music, it's sound, it's picture, it's photography, it's acting, it's, it's feeling, it's everything. And when one is good, when it's done really well, it there's sort of nothing better. And you can always go back and watch it again and get the same
Yeah.
feel. So films change when you change. Like you'll have different experiences of how you feel about a film as you age.
Absolutely. And I've certainly had experiences of watching a film when I was younger and being like, what is this? I don't like this. And not really understanding it, and then watching it as an adult. And so your whole entire life experience has changed. And soon you understand something, you see something differently. But I really appreciate that answer. And I really appreciate your time coming on here and chatting
Thanks.
movies with me. And I always like to wrap up my show by having my guests ask me a question. So, what would
Great.
you like to ask the Wasteland reviewer?
It's very difficult, but I was going to say, because you've asked lots of sort of difficult questions or questions that have promoted sort of other responses, but
Hmm.
what is a film, and it doesn't have to be like your favorite film or anything, but what is a film that's maybe changed your life or your view on something? Where did, what was the film and what was the time where you saw something and it fundamentally maybe shifted your perspective or made you a career change or whatever it was, or I don't know.
Well, to be honest, I think it might have been the first time I ever watched The Road Warrior. Was something that really changed something in me because if you couldn't tell from all the branding of all the things that I do, it's like the Wasteland came from somewhere. And to be frank, it came from the head of George Miller. Because I remember watching The Road Warrior for the first time and just being like, what is this? And just because like I watched action movies growing up, I didn't watch I think I watched The Road Warrior for the first time in college. And I remember because I watched Die Hard growing up and a lot of Stallone and Arnold and Bruce Willis action movies and stuff like that. But I just remember watching The Road Warrior and just being like, this world that has come to life on screen is so specific and so creative. And I didn't have to wait as long as everybody else for Fury Road. But I was waiting years when I'm like, you just kept hearing rumors something's gonna happen. And I remember back, it's 10 years ago when Fury Road hit theaters and sitting in that theater and just having my mind blown by like, this is what somebody can do, bringing this world to life. And I'm like, this is just what George Miller got to do when somebody gave him a bunch of money to actually like really bring
Yeah.
his idea together because the Road Warrior changed my perspective on what movies could be. It gave me ideas. So like I've dabbled and I've written some scripts and some ideas down and stuff like that, and I really haven't done anything with them up to this point. And to be frank, they might have been a little too bold for somebody's first idea for a movie. It'd probably be very expensive to make happen, but like it sparked something in me and it made me want to think about movies differently. It made me want to I remember I was in film club in college and we would meet every other week and in the in between weeks we would do see like if somebody volunteered to do a series on movies to present and share with everybody. I showed the first Mad Max and the Road Warrior because like I wanted other people to see this movie and I wanted to talk about it. And those George Miller has inspired me so much in terms of like it made me want to do things with movies, talk about them, create things. So it was probably the Road Warrior was that moment where it's just like things changed for me, my perception of things. So yes, that's my best answer to that question.
Well, again, I feel like I'm a sequel kid because I still think that that's the best one. I think that the Road Warrior #2 is extraordinary. It's
Yep.
just so tense, and the stunt work is I'm just amazing. Just like
I'm sure people got seriously injured making that
that,
movie,
I absolutely. I mean, how
thrown off the
yeah,
things. But
17 people died during. You're like, I'm sure they did. Like it was just so
I'm like,
difficult.
if you told me that nobody was harmed in making this movie, I'd call you a liar
You
because
must be.
there's no way in hell that
But
didn't
what
happen.
What's interesting is you said that the latest one, Furiosa, which I loved, I thought was
Yeah.
fantastic. I mean, that opening was just extraordinarily brilliant. But again, I wrote to George Miller because obviously in Furiosa, the artwork that he's drawing is the same painting as in our film, in The Drowned. The big mural that he's doing
Yeah.
is exactly the same. And I wrote to George Miller. I didn't receive a reply, but I
Yeah.
wrote to him going, look, and it was really funny because we were in Cannes at the same time. He was
Mhm.
screening Furiosa,
Yeah.
and we were screening the Drowned, but it was called the Waterhouse at that time. And I wrote to him saying, we're screening at the same time in the same building at totally opposite ends of our career. Like I'm at
Mhm.
the beginning, you're closer to oh my God, the end. It sounds depressing, but
Yeah.
obviously closer to the more winter years, let's say. You've got hundreds of millions. I've got like $2 or whatever, and we've both used the same piece of artwork expressing different feeling,
Yeah.
different metaphors. And I wanted to just get something back, but I never heard anything from him from
Maybe
but
someday you will.
maybe
But
I will. Yes,
uh,
yeah.
but that's fascinating. And that's the incredible thing of just what inspiration is connecting with people in different ways. But Samuel, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time. And please, everybody watching, please go check out The Drowned. Show the
Please
film some
do.
love. It's a thought-provoking, interesting film to go check out. But thank you so much for coming on and chatting movies with me.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.